Okay, we're starting our caregiver workshop, Fostering More Energy, and I am going to pass it over to my colleague Mary to get started on our agenda and our introduction.
Okay, thank you, Sherelle. Here's our agenda for tonight's workshop. We'll be doing introductions, discussing things that impact our energy, how to take control of our energy, thinking about some solutions and contingency plans, and lastly, discussing caregiver energy protections, and then some final thoughts and messages. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Mary Drake, and I'm a family navigator working with the Trauma Informed Care and System Navigation Programs, a mouthful, I guess, at Vision for Equality, providing systems navigation support to caregivers in need of assistance, finding specific disability and mental behavioral health services for family members. I previously worked with Philadelphia Family Voices and Appeal Center, advocating for and educating families with children living with autism, as well as with mental and behavioral health challenges. I also have lived experience. I'm the mother of an adult son. He's 20, almost 27 years old now. And so I've been through what maybe some of you have been through, trying to navigate the school system as well as all the other mental health and behavioral health systems around the city. So, Sherelle, want to introduce yourself?
Okay. I am also with the systems navigation team here and the trauma informed care team as a family navigator, and completed the training through Vision with Lakeside Global Institute as a certified trauma sensitive professional. And most of my background is in human services in some capacity, but I've also worked within the intersections of business and law. I have functioned as a registered mental health facilitator with the National Board of Certified Counselors while working in human service capacity. And some of that work basically includes increasing the community's awareness around mental health concepts, like when they need it, what it looks like, and things like that. And I'm sort of connecting families with those with disabilities in that same respect, so to speak. So, in addition to that, advocating for them or just taking them through what that looks like to advocate for themselves so that they feel empowered to be able to protect themselves and their interests, despite having so many systems to navigate. And what brought me into this world a little bit further is my youngest child who's on the spectrum and also has some medical complexities. My experience with caregiving really started with my father and another relative who I cared for. So I have a deep and incredible empathy for the unique experience of individuals who have disabilities and their family members. And I'm aiding individuals just like that, just like us here at Vision. And uh, I think maybe I can, I guess, jump into who our program manager is, and then I'll pass it back to Mary. So our program manager is Shu Allegra. She is the program manager for the two programs I mentioned that Mary and I are functioning from, the Trauma Informed Care Program and Systems Navigation. And she is an independent mental health and inclusion consultant um, as well as being certified in clinical anxiety treatment, certified family trauma, as well as mindfulness. And she considers herself to be differently able and also is the parent of three individuals who are differently able. They have developmental differences. And she has been involved with different initiatives in Pennsylvania for the past decade, for the past decade, working to dedicate her life to help families just like ours and their caregivers live fulfilling lives despite all of the things that they are navigating. And Mary will give you a little bit of background, typically about our projects that we talk about.
So, at Vision for Equality, our mission is to assist and empower people with disabilities and their families to seek quality, and satisfaction in their lives, as well as equal access to supports and services. Oh, excuse me, a vision grounded firmly in community. So yes, there's three components of our program: systems navigation, trauma informed care, and birth to five. Systems navigation, resources, peer support, share approaches to typical challenges. And then I'm going to turn it over to Sherelle. You want to take it?
Sure, I can take this one. So our trauma informed care project, like Mary hinted on, is also one of the three projects under the Philadelphia Family Support Projects. That's a lot. But in this project, we also provide peer support. We offer giver trainings and workshops, support groups, and we give referrals to trauma therapy. The first three sessions are free and it's first come, first serve. And the next project is the Birth to Five project. Um, that in that project, there's also peer support and the offer of resources. There are also caregiver trainings, workshops, but very unique and specific to the caregiver's experience with that age cohort, that birth to five, because the resources needed for that time frame are totally different from what we offer in systems navigation. So basically, the Birth to Five project and those trainings and their unique support groups, they're offering a safe space for processing this unique experience. And what's different about that project is they also share how to use the life course tools. And on the Vision for Equality website, under events, under the events tab, there is usually life course trainings there that you can sign up for just to show you how to navigate different things that come up, whether they're big or small. And they help with your decision making when you have to approach things that are challenging or that are changing with your family. And oh, I was going to go straight into energy impacts anyway. So things that impact our energy. You say something, Mary?
No.
Oh,
Mm-mm.
okay. So caregivers are needed daily, and we're expected to show up consistently um, because others depend on us. And because of that, we have to be able to identify when things are draining our energy, know when we need to replenish it and what that looks like and key factors surrounding that. Because basically, without being able to identify any of those things, stress really compounds and we lose patience easily. And that doesn't help us in our caregiver journey because we're doing this daily.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
I
unfortunately, the
agree.
quality of the care that we give, if we feel these things, that suffers. The care that we give to whether you're a paraprofessional or healthcare professional or just a family caregiver, that care for yourself and loved ones or clients that actually suffers. So that's why this is an important topic for us.
I agree.
Hmm. So basically, when we sustain our personal energy, we can maintain clear judgment. We can regulate our emotions better, and we can increase our resilience when demands are high, which is pretty often for caregivers. So basically, that's another reason why we are focusing on this topic of fostering more energy. And we're not talking about just high impact things that we have to do. The presentation will show a little bit more of some subtle things that we can do to impact our energy. So, for instance, specifically when we have lower energy or we can't pay attention to that, obviously, like I mentioned, our patience can be a little bit lower, and that makes for more stress and more susceptibility to burning out. And that's much more likely for people who are caregivers, obviously. Decision making is impacted when we're drained or we feel mentally fatigued. And when we feel physically fatigued or physically exhausted, we are not able to respond how we typically would say if we did have the energy that we would like to start with. When we experience energy drains, we experience low energy that can turn chronic. So that's another thing. Not only will the cycle happen this way and we experience it, but we can start to experience it over and over again. And that's obviously because the nature of what we do is a daily thing, like we mentioned first. So when we experience chronic low energy, this will basically impact our ability to regulate our emotions as well. If we're constantly experiencing stress over and over again or things that drain us. When you feel drained all the time, you sort of start to expect that and sort of lose a little bit of the hope and energy that you had around approaching things that are stressful. And in turn, that can increase your anxiety and increase your irritability. And caregiver health can be negatively impacted. by things like this when we experience depletion that is sustained and ongoing. So some of the energy impacts that we experience can be drains, and some examples include the fact that we might remain hyper alert, or there's chronic sleep disruption that might be prominent, say, with those who might experience our Birth to Five program. Obviously, dealing all of us who have children know what it is to deal with a newborn, and how you do experience chronic sleep disruption for a specific. And for those of us whose children ended up having diagnoses, we might still be in this cycle of sleep disruption, even though our children are not little kids anymore. In addition to that, multitasking, people tend to think that multitasking is like a superpower when really it makes us more ineffective, says like more recent studies. Also having relentless advocacy battles, which I'm feeling the impacts of right now because of a recent IEP meeting. I was at the Board of Education last night until almost midnight, advocating for my daughter's school to stay open. Um, Obviously, also having stress in your environment. And that doesn't just include things like, um, I don't know, noise pollution, like as they say, but if your environment is sensory overloading, for instance, Sarah used to mention all the time, who was a part of our Birth to Five project, she used to mention all the time that her and her daughter had conflicting sensory needs, that she needs more quiet and her daughter is more sensory seeking. So that sort of led to clashes when they were in the same environment. And I had the same experience with my daughter where I like quiet. I was used to quiet for 11 years before I had an autistic child who likes to stim audibly. So I'm still getting used to the fact that I'm in a space with someone with different sensory needs, and that creates sensory overload. So that's something that could point to you experiencing something that's an energy drain, particularly in your environment. And some other things in your environment could even be clutter or conflict. And that could be vicarious conflict that you see maybe in your neighborhood, not even in your household. So those things can be draining to experience.
Yeah, I can relate to all of those, Sherelle.
And meaning the environmental ones or just in general?
Just all of those.
Hmm.
And my son is an adult.
Hmm.
And his noise, I guess, would be sometimes he needs to talk, do a lot of talking about what he wants to talk about, where I might want to, just be to myself and and being quiet, or listen to music or something, but he needs to talk. And
Yes.
I need to pay attention to him because, I make him feel valid, Um, and so that to me is a sensory overload when I'm not ready to do that, but I have to be ready when he is. So yeah, I do relate. Yeah.
Wow. And that's incredible that you're even being cognizant about the fact that you don't want to just go through the motions of looking like you're interacting, that you actually want him to feel like what you feel is valid. And even though I'm tired,
Hmm.
I'm going to listen to what it is that you're fixated on right now that you want to tell me. So that's a beautiful thing that you do that. That's very selfless, I should say. So,
Well,
mhm,
yeah, I mean, I had to learn to do that because and I had to. He said something to me recently. I have been helping family member with his mental health issues, trying to
mhm.
help him get support. And he said something to me recently, like, "You never have time to talk to me anymore," and I feel sad about that. And so, yeah, I had to, be, kind of be cognizant of what he's saying and learn, learn to pay attention because I hadn't been paying attention because I was overloaded by some other stuff, the family member. So yeah, um, I guess I do want to I didn't want to make him feel bad. I felt very sad about that myself.
Well, I think that ties into even this, what I'm going into next. So we talked about, and not even making it a negative thing, because the drain can sound like a negative word, but I mean, it is what it is, something that takes from you. If you're interacting
Mm-hmm.
with people, that takes energy from you. So that's considered a
It
drain.
does. It
Yes.
does.
So we're talking about, um, sensory needs and things like that. If that drain is happening where somebody is making noise that, and you want the opposite, you want some quiet, maybe you didn't have quote unquote time, for your family member because you needed something to restore you first before you gave him again. Because
Hmm.
otherwise, if somebody's taken from your cup, obviously you have less to offer until you replenish, and then I can give you some. So
Absolutely.
maybe you needed restoring first before you can give the relative what he was looking for.
Right, right, right.
So energy impacts and restorers. We're talking about restorers now. We highlighted the drains. Some things that can be restorers of your energy can be rest that is uninterrupted. I don't even remember what that feels like. I don't remember what that feels like. I know it's something that I want again, but
Hmm.
and it says at least, and obviously if you're an adult, that just that's just not something that really happens. I mean, people have to go to work. We just have responsibilities. So it's a lot of times where you do have to interrupt it to get up and do certain things. But the caveat here is even if you institute having uninterrupted rest, I'm not even adding sleep, rest, even just sitting your body and not doing anything finally, at least for some days. That's really important to underscore. So we can add
Right,
that.
right.
Yeah, that's something that we can add.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
yes. And regulating your own senses. Mary and I just mentioned that. I'm working on that because that's something that's so dear to me. Like I said, my children are 11 years apart. So having an only child who was very mellow and didn't do much for 11 years. And then somebody who's like loves noise, loves energy, loves the whole thing. I'm still not used to that. So regulation of your own senses can restore you. And there are different ways to do that. We talked about that in a lot of different caregiver workshops. Obviously with journaling or meditating or talking with a friend or watching something that's funny, all of those things can help regulate you. Also, eating nutritious meals is really important. It sounds so cliche because everybody tells us to do that, but
It's true.
it's really important. It's really important, and I think I mentioned it previously, but I'll say it again here. Um, Particularly as an African American person and as a woman who is covered. Um, I suffer often from vitamin D deficiency because African Americans have a hard time metabolizing and making vitamin D. And if you're
Hmm.
covered, you also are not getting what you need from the sun to make it even more. So I suffer from the deficiency over and over again. And that ends up making me feel like I'm drained, I'm tired, or your mood suffers. All of these different things. You have brain fog, all of those things I experience often and then have to supplement for a consistent period so I can feel restored again. And I'm in the process of that right now. Right now,
Well,
again.
that's good.
Yeah,
That's
but
good that you're
a lot.
realizing that. Yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
and it took this long. I didn't know what it was. It just looks like multiple symptoms, but sometimes it's a nutrition thing. Sometimes it's a vitamin thing. So it's really important
Hmm.
to people that where it's
Yeah.
not sometimes it's not like a mental health problem or you're struggling. Sometimes it's your nutrition and it turns things around for you. Beyond that, emotional offloading, that can look like, just talking to a friend and telling them you don't want advice. You just want them to listen while you talk nonstop. Maybe like your son, like what your son was telling you, what he wanted to express. Or emotional
Hmm.
offloading could be I do sometimes a journal dump where I try to stop trying to make sense of what I'm writing and write in a format and make it look neat. Instead, I just whatever's coming to mind, if it seems like it's unrelated or chaotic, I still write it. So it's like a journal dump, and that's an example of emotional offloading that you could use as well. Obviously,
Yeah.
movement too. But
That's the best way. Yes, I'm sorry to cut you off. That was the
hmm
best way to journal. Is just
hmm
because a journal is yours,
mm
and no one has to see it. It's just yours to, like you say, dump everything that's in your
hmm
head, and it does provide relief, for whatever
yes.
stress that you're going through. Another technique that I learned in therapy some years ago
mm
was if you're having, trauma, for instance, You can just draw stick figures. And I used to laugh at that, but it's true. You can draw like two stick figures or however many that you're having a conflict with, and you can like do this, one could be you and one could be the other person. And then you can have like like the little cartoon thing, like a dialogue. And then,
Yes, the dialogue
and like
bubble.
you can like, curse that person out if you curse or
Yeah.
or tell them that you did this to me and this is how I feel about it and then that kind of helps you get whatever
Wow.
off your chest, like whatever
I love that.
because I had that when I had a certain amount of trauma when I broke up with my ex-husband and
Hmm.
I felt like he did this to me, he did that to me. And I felt this way about it, and I was devastated. And I got to do that with the stick figures. I was one stick figure, he was another, and I was just telling him what I would, what he did and what and how he made me feel and that kind of thing. So that helps too. That is really
That
that was
is
effective for me.
incredible. As
Hmm.
long as I've been in therapy probably since my daughter was a year old. My oldest was a year old and she's 17. And nobody has ever offered me that technique before. So that is a really incredible and creative way to emotionally offload.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think I'm going to
It
use
seems a
that.
little silly, but try it. It seems to
Hmm.
try it because you don't have to be able
Yes.
to you don't have to know how to draw, just make the little
Hmm.
circle on the stick and
Yes.
and just go at it.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
some of the other ones are obviously movement. It says gentle recommended because rigorous movement is stimulating. So the whole thing is to restore, maybe gentle restoration might yield better results. And obviously, even setting boundaries, creating boundaries can help you feel restored. And
Hmm.
obviously, how that to me, how I'm taking that is setting a boundary can stop something from being taken from you that you don't want taken from you. So, and
Right.
something being taken is a drain. So that's why it's the
Hmm.
opposite is a restore. So I love that option as well. And
Hmm.
taking control of our energy, some ways that we can take control of our energy. So we mentioned the drains, we mentioned how to restore, and now we're figuring out how to use our own power to control this, to control our experience with our energy. So naming energy drains so that we can know what is actually going on. Sometimes things happen and we don't even recognize that it exists. We just know what we feel like as a result of it. Name things that restore our energy, like we just discussed, protecting your non-negotiables, and that's with those boundaries that we mentioned. Even this one noting specific boundaries and also putting energy recovery into your schedule. I think I started doing it, but I fell off, just like when people have New Year's resolutions. So it's really, I think I'm
Hmm.
going to put that back in where you actually put it on your calendar that how are you going to restore? And it sounds like it can be great to even piggyback off of when you have draining things on your calendar, like going to the IEP meeting where I was
Yeah.
going back and forth with the occupational therapist about giving adding a goal for my daughter to have life skills because they're
Yeah.
important even for education. So for instance, if my daughter is almost 6 and she can't button or zip, her teachers are not helping her in first grade putting things on. They're not going to do that. They don't have
Oh,
time to.
I remember those meetings. I'm sorry. I remember those.
I was so exhausted. It was a drain for sure. So what I'm saying is if you have that on your calendar, there's an IEP meeting on Thursday. Maybe you need to put
Hmm.
an energy recovery task, small, maybe start off small, that either that same day, the next day, or whenever you think you'll need it before you're depleted. So I think that's
That's a
really
good idea. Yeah,
and
that's a
also
good
with
idea.
control it things. So with the being proactive and regulating your senses, that's really important to not wait until you're depleted, which some of us sometimes we've conditioned ourselves to keep pushing until just until. And I think we should move away from that. I think we should try and be proactive with that and obviously acknowledging that you have your own autonomy and you can make the choices with your body as well with what you do. And I think one of the things I also highlight, because I'm trying not to read everything, I'm not doing good at that, but try not to read everything on the screen because everybody will get a copy. But strategic support is something that we talk about a lot in our workshops as well, which is not expecting our best friends or our spouse or whomever to be everything that we need. So sometimes some people are only good for when we want to go move our bodies because they are, they have a more hyper energy. Um, and when you're trying to restore yourself, maybe you need something more gentle. So maybe you go to a specific friend to do that emotional offloading who's not judgmental or who won't overstimulate you. So being strategic about what support you need, when, and who might be good for that is really important for knowing how to control your energy and what you're experiencing.
Yep. And I would agree with all of that. Yeah.
And controlling your energy continues. So basically, controlling your energy as a caregiver involves effort. And sometimes it's hard to want to do anything. Sometimes we fall into default modes because we're just tired of doing. So we don't want to exert any more effort, even if it's like to think of ideas or options or solutions. But this is going to involve effort, and how you need to look at it is you're basically giving something back to yourself. That is not just something on your to-do list, but it's a way that you're sustaining yourself. So that's why it's worth whatever effort you are actually giving.
Yep. So important.
Hmm. And
So,
Mary, you'll handle the solutions and contingency plans.
absolutely. So here's some solutions and contingency plans. Um, and we contingency is the key word. Contingency is for emergency, or it's the same as emergency. So, we want to like be proactive, like you just said, Sherelle. Um, when planning is makes us proactive, I guess. And some of us, like myself, are challenged with planning, but we have to be very intentional about it. Um, so this enables you to keep showing up for yourself and others. The people and things you love and enjoy are things that you wanna be able to be there and show up in a positive way. Um, Disregard the push through it and hustle cultures. Um, the thing where I have to, just keep going, keep going, keep going. If you do nothing else, stabilize the basics, decrease energy leaks. The basics that you should stabilize include sleep, nutrition, medication, if that applies to your life or your social life. And energy leaks can happen when we overcomplicate routines, have expectations that are too high for specific people or situations, and we expect perfection of ourselves and others. Take life outside the box and into a plot. Analyze what matters most and make adjustments according to what you find. Um, Such as the categories of family, friends, community, work, health, savings, um, things like that. Solutions for fostering more energy. Reconnect to meaning. And what does that mean? Remember who you are beyond what you manage as a caregiver and what you manage it for. Meaning can become a stabilizer when your energy is low or challenged in other ways. Meaning does not need to be a motivator, but it can help you decide with a clear mind what is worth your limited capacity. Um, did I do that already? Okay. Solutions for fostering more energy. Oh, did I do that already?
Yeah, so and this is just and Shu will cut this out with us talking. But
Yeah, okay.
but yeah, so
Um,
reconnected to me. This is just continuing that the
okay.
next, yeah.
All right. So, um, another thing is anchor meaning to your unique values. Actively preserve your identity outside of caregiving. Um, Allow meaning to justify the boundaries that you set and revisit moments of impact in your life and loved one or client.
Okay.
Solutions for fostering more energy. We're still on that subject. Reconnect to autonomy. There is no need to be in control of your full circumstances. And even more important, to remember that it's just not possible. Even if you start by protecting small decisions, that can just restore your energy. Don't think that you have to do it all because you're not super lady, Superman. That's what we all want to be, especially us women. We want to be everything to everybody. So it's not possible. It's just not as humans. Create options for opting out. Allow yourself to have micro choices. In other words, break things down. In high drain situations, allow yourself to opt out of plans instead. And that's, for instance, instead of simply having coping plans, having plans for coping can signal to you that you must participate in most or all situations. This does not allow you to exercise autonomy, just like I said, trying to do everything. In instances where you must do things, still allow yourself to have micro choices. This can include your involving adjustments in timing or timing selections, order of tasks, what environment tasks take place, and et cetera, et cetera. This can help you protect your capacity or your bandwidth. So, in other words, break things down into smaller pieces so that everything's more manageable. And so our
Now,
final minute,
oh, I'm
I'm
sorry. I
sorry,
just wanted to jump in for what you were mentioning before you
go
mentioned
ahead,
the last ones. Just
go
with
ahead.
just with allowing yourself like the micro choices, some examples of the micro choices, for instance, like it says timing or timing selection. So basically, like if we know that we have to do certain things, um, but so we feel like our choice is taken away from us because we have to do it and only we can do it. If we're in control at least over what time we get to do it, or if we get to do it when somebody is over who can help us, or
Mhm.
if we get to mix up what we do first and what we do last, or when we do something. Like for instance, if I have to do a specific task, and I'd rather do it upstairs so I can lay down right after as opposed to at another time. All of those things help you remember that you have choice. And it's
Right.
crazy, but my 17-year-old reminds me all the time when I'm frantic and I'm like being neurotic, like, no, I gotta get this done, I gotta get this done. She's like, Mom, you have free will. Like you have choice. Like
Mm-hmm. That's
she's being sarcastic, but also real that like, are you not noticing like you're an adult who can choose on your own to not do that?
right. And again, you can't do it, you just can't do everything. You have to
No.
you have to make choices as to, what you want to do and can do. And don't worry about it if you can't do it.
Yes.
So, and do it to you, or you can say, I'm gonna do that tomorrow.
Or it doesn't have to be perfect because that's another thing. I shy away from things if I can't do it how I want to do it in my how I have it in my head. So if I can't do it
Mm-hmm.
all the way through, I'm like, I'm not doing it because I need to do it this way. You really don't. It
Mm-hmm.
just needs to get done
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep. So our final message is caregiver energy protections. Um, we want to protect ourselves, not our, well, ourselves in terms of our energy. Having part of your purpose come from caregiving does not mean you need to find more effort to give. It's like we were saying, we have choices. So fostering your energy first for you and support you in refraining from expelling or spending energy on what does not align with your life you hold at heart. Meaning again, we don't have to do it all. Keep so that's probably going to be it for our final message in terms of energy savers and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, keep in touch. And here is some contact information for Shu, our director, Nimsi, who's not here, but she'll be returning next month, and Sherelle. And then I guess I probably need to add my
Yeah,
information
so we can, but
at
and
some
what
point.
typically happens is, and honestly, first off, I couldn't remember if this is actually NIMSY's extension or mine. So that's wrong because that's one of our extensions, but I don't know who. So it doesn't even matter with this piece because like you said, NIMSY isn't here. Obviously my email is there, but the best person to reach out to is Shu because she'll disseminate everybody to whomever
Right.
would take the person for their resources. So
And you know what?
Shu is the
I
one.
okay, and actually I don't even have that number, so I can't, so
Okay.
that's another thing I need to talk to Shu
Okay.
about.
Yeah, so that'll
Um,
be it'll they can contact Shu, but I'll just stop the recording here because she'll probably take that part out.
okay.